Feeling guilty. Reality transurfing. Feeling guilty is an excess potential in its purest form. The thing is that concepts such as good or bad don't exist in nature. To the balancing forces, good or bad deeds are equivalent to each other. The balance will be restored in every case, whenever an excess potential is created. You've done something bad, you become aware of the nature of your deed, you then feel guilty. I should be punished. An excess potential is created. You've done something good, you become aware of the nature of your deed, you then feel proud of yourself. I should be rewarded. An excess potential is also created. The balancing forces don't have an idea of why someone has to be punished or rewarded. They only eliminate the produced irregularities in the energy field. The payment for feeling guilty will always be punishment of one kind or another. If you don't feel guilty, then the punishment may not be coming. Unfortunately, being proud of yourself when you have done something good will also lead to punishment and not reward. This is because the balancing forces have to eliminate the excess potential of pride, while a reward would only reinforce it. When other proper people are making you feel guilty, the excess potential will be squared. It is enough that your conscience bothers you. But now there is the wrath of the righteous ones to bear as well. And finally, an unwarranted feeling of guilt that is related to the innate tendency of always being to blame for everything creates the biggest excess potential. In this case, it is quite pointless to be conscience-stricken. After all, the reason for your guilt was made up. Having a guilty conscience can really ruin your life, because you would constantly be under the influence of the balancing forces. In other words, you would always be punished in various ways for your imagined wrongdoings. That's why there is a saying, impudence is the second happiness. In general, the balancing forces won't do anything to people that are not conscience-stricken. Nonetheless, what we would really want God to punish those scoundrels. It would seem that justice has to prevail, and evil must be punished. Even so, nature doesn't know anything about a sense of justice, as sad as it may be. On the contrary, the decent people with an inherent feeling of guilt are the ones to constantly face misfortunes. Whereas shameless and cynical scoundrels get away with almost anything without being punished. And what's more, they often get rewarded for their efforts. So feeling guilty will always produce a punishment script, and it does so even without your knowledge. By following the script, your subconscious will make you pay. In the best case, you will get a few cuts or bruises, or maybe you'll have some kind of problem. And in the worst case, you could have an accident that will have serious repercussions. This is what the feeling of guilt does for you. It brings only destruction, and there is nothing useful or creative about it. You don't need to torture yourself with a guilty conscience. It won't be of any help to you. It's better to act in such a way so that you won't feel guilty later. And once you've done that, it is meaningless to continue torturing yourself in vain, as it won't make anyone feel better. The Bible's 10 Commandments are not morals in the sense that you have to behave yourself, but they are rather recommendations about how one should act in order not to disrupt the balance. We are the ones who accept the commandments with our basic childlike mindset, as if our mother told us not to be naughty, or we would have to go and stand in the corner. On the contrary, no one is going to punish those who are up to a little mischief. By disturbing the balance, people create their own problems, and the commandments only warn us of that. As we already talked about earlier, the feeling of guilt serves as a string by which a person can be pulled by pendulums, and in particular, by manipulators. Manipulators are people who act according to the formula, you should do whatever I say because you're guilty, or I'm better than you are because you are wrong. They are trying to impose a feeling of guilt onto their charges so that they'll have power over them, or for their own self-assurance. On the outside, these people appear proper. Their conceptions of what is good and what is bad were established long ago. They always speak true words, thus they are always right. All their actions are also flawless and entirely proper. However, we must say that not all proper people have a tendency to manipulate. So where do the manipulators get their need to lecture and guide their charges from? It is conditioned by the doubts and uncertainties that are constantly tormenting their hearts. They skillfully hide this inner struggle from the world around them as well as from themselves. The lack of an inner core of strength which the truly proper people possess forces the manipulator to seek self-assurance at the expense of others. The need to lecture and to direct others stems from the desire to strengthen their own position, and they are doing so by belittling their charges. Thus, dependent relationships are created. It would be wonderful if the balancing forces gave the manipulators what they deserve. However, an excess potential will only arise where there is tension, but no moving energy. In this case, a charge would give the manipulator his energy. Thus, there is no potential, and the manipulator is free to act as they like and get away with it. As soon as somebody shows that he is ready to take on the feeling of guilt, the manipulators will immediately stick to this person and start sucking his energy. In order to avoid their influence, you simply have to refuse feeling guilty. You're not obliged to justify yourself in front of anybody, and you don't owe anything to anybody. If you are at fault, you can bear the punishment, as long as you don't remain the guilty one. Don't you owe your loved ones something? Again, the answer is no. After all, don't you care about them because you are convinced that it is the right thing to do, and not because you have to? This is a different matter entirely. If you are prone to justifying yourself, you have to stop doing that. Then the manipulators will know that there is no way they can hook onto you, and so they will leave you in peace. Thank you for listening. Remember, true freedom begins when you release the weight of guilt and embrace your authentic self. Stay grounded, stay confident, and keep transurfing your reality.